1, 2, 3, whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of PAC-TV. I'm Seth Soloway, the director of the Performing Arts Center at Purchase College, and we're pleased to be here with you today to offer some further content as we all continue to stay safe at home and unable to gather in our theaters. We're very, very lucky today to be joined by an entire panel of wonderful folks. To give a brief bit of background, right before the shutdown, we were about to premiere a piece that we had commissioned from Doug Varone and his company, Doug Varone and Dancers, and the piece was set to feature both the company as well as members of our Conservatory of Dance at Purchase College. So we're thrilled to be joined today by Doug Varone, dancer with his company, Ryan Yamauchi, and Conservatory of Dance dancers Faith Mondesire, Katrin Roach, and Madison Elliot, all of whom have graduated in the storied class of 2020. So I'm pleased to welcome you all, and I'll give you all a quick second to say hello.
Hi guys.
Hello. Hi.
Good to be here, Seth.
How's it going?
There he is. And Ryan, you're also an alumni of Purchase College, aren't you?
I am. I graduated in 2015.
Wonderful, and we're going to talk about that more later. So I want to start with something that is universal and that anybody can answer. And I want to also say that all these questions came from our audience, from students. So we're really getting to what people want to know when they watch this. So we want to start with anyone is welcome to answer this one. We want to talk about what aspects of your choreographic style do you directly attribute to your training at Purchase College?
All right, I'll go first.
There we go. Of course, because Doug Varone is also
I am also a Purchase graduate. That's right. So I studied composition at Purchase under a woman named Kazuko Hirabayashi, and she taught, she was at an institution at Purchase for years, and I can't remember, was she gone by the time you guys arrived as freshmen? She was, yes. So she was an institution at Purchase. She taught composition in a very structural way, almost as if it was music composition, dealing with structure and form in really clear and defined ways. So I felt as if when I left there, I had very, very clear tools as a dance maker that allowed me to create work that had a solid base to it. And then over the course of my career, trying to find ways to disguise that was really essential in order for me to continue to grow as an artist. So I began developing a lot of different games and devices, structural ways of adding to what I knew in order to create work in a really different way.
Great, thank you, Doug. And how about maybe one of the students want to weigh in on that question? Since you're all going out into the field now.
Hi. My choreographic style definitely helped learning from Doug our senior year, similar to what Katie was saying. We have devices and how do we view dance just for what it is without our own separate interpretation, like just seeing it and saying, okay, I see this color, or I see this painting, or I see this object. That helps me to kind of take myself out of it, just to see the canvas for what it looks like, and then put in my own interpretation and story and history and background into how I choreograph.
Thanks, Faith. So Faith, I'm going to ask you a little follow-up because we want to really always be educating the audience. So for those of us who love dance but didn't study it, tell us, Doug said devices, you said devices. Tell us what that means.
Sorry, say the last part of your question again.
So Doug and you and Doug both mentioned devices. So tell us what a device is in dance.
Oh, yeah, device, the way Doug explained it to us, is pretty much the way I interpret it is different angles and perspectives as to how you view two bodies in a space, three bodies in a space, levels, adding in an outside factor of just random words like jump. What does that mean to you? How would you interpret the word jump? How would you interpret the word to fly? You know, it could be something that's upward or elevated or downward and grounded. Both can mean different things depending on the person's interpretation. So that was the way I took devices and how I used it in my choreography.
Great, thank you so much for that. So Doug, I want to come back to you for a couple of specific questions about some of the work that you've done at the Performing Arts Center. So when I first came, we did a piece called In the Shelter of the Fold that had its premiere at the PAC in 2016. And this was a joint project, just like that we had this spring between your company, the Performing Arts Center, and the Conservatory of Dance. What about the Conservatory of Dance involvement in that piece made the piece really special, and how did that make you want to build a piece with us in a similar way this year?
That's a great question. Well, I had been working at Purchase, I think, for about 3 or 4 years up to that point, and had a really wonderful relationship with the students. We were also teaching a technique class based on the style that we worked in, and I was really eager to work with these immensely talented kids. You know, I having graduated from there and seen you know, many of the graduates that came through over the last 30 plus years. There's something really beautifully unique about a Purchase dancer, and I can never quite sure how to put my finger on it, but it's unlike any other training that happens around this country. When we hold auditions, I can pick out a Purchase dancer from in the lot. There's something that in the training that allows them to maintain their individuality as dancers, which is a beautiful, beautiful gift. So I'm always drawn to that, and I was eager to build a project that utilized a group of dancers, incorporating them into the larger aspect of this work. And you had mentioned In the Shelter of the Fold, which is the piece that we created in 6 sections, I believe. Each one was a small little unit, a standalone dance. I was very much interested in building small works that I could excerpt for our own repertory without showing the entire piece. So each one had a beginning, middle, and an end, and they could be shared on a program as a small work, or present the entire work itself from beginning to end, including the piece entitled Mass, which was created for 12 Purchase students. And then throughout the course of that piece, those 12 students were introduced throughout the evening. So it felt as if they were integrated, even though primarily they were in one aspect of the work.
Great, Doug, thank you so much. So of course our audience is perceptive, and so the next question is about the 6 sections, and so I'm going to zero in on a little because you started to answer some of it already. But part of what I think is important for folks to know, and I always tell our audience, you know, one of the core goals, and there are several in commissioning a work, is that we want the commission work that's going to have a life, so that the Purchase artistic brand of excellence travels all over the world. So one of the things that was very interesting to me in starting to work with you on a piece like this was, you know, how was the piece going to travel, knowing that it was bigger than your company? And then you started to talk about these sections that could be excerpted, and it all made sense to me. So what the person who wrote the question wanted to know was it originally meant to be episodic, and then did you decide through the work that these sections could get pulled out, or did you always see them as either episodic or just solo pieces the way that you just described?
I think both, actually. I definitely saw the work as episodic, ideas that flowed from one place to another. All of them were based on the same theme. It was the theme of faith, or or belief. I think for me is a more accurate term. the idea that we all have things that we believe in, that faith means something different to each of us. For some people, it has religious connotations, for others, not necessarily so. So I was interested in building each section with a completely different component of that word. So they were interrelated in that regard. But as a result, they also all had their own standalone appeal. And in answer to the other part of your question, I believe that, having a dance company for many, many years, I'm always looking for opportunities to reinvent the wheel for myself and for my company. And allowing a project like this to find its way into other colleges and university dance programs across the United States has really opened up the possibilities of touring the work, which for me is really important. It's always wonderful to create a piece. You always want people to be able to see it when they after its premiere. So building that opportunity directly into the creative process, knowing that this would be a new model for us as a touring unit, was really important. And moving so into the new work that we began creating, I had that in the back of my mind as well.
Great, thank you so much. So I want to open it back up to the group. I think it'll be interesting to get the student perspective, and also, Ryan's perspective. I think will be fairly unique, being now in the company. So we just talked about how Doug does like to create these pieces that are larger than the company, that integrate the company with student dancers, alumni dancers. So I'm curious to hear from folks what it's like, how you go about working together when you come together for one project and you're not necessarily a company that's working together all the time, month over month, year over year. What is it like to come together for one project?
Well, for me, I think because Purchase just in general has just a very community-based environment, the dancers that were picked to be in this specific piece with Doug, I felt we all connected really well in vibing off of each other's energy, each other's creative process, how we interpret his movement when we were trying to like catch whatever step he was doing or trying to give to us. Just really having a lightheartedness and a curiousness to learn, and also an openness to adapt to whatever it is that he wanted us to see, or whatever his vision was, which I think helped create a collaborative and just a really fun and joyous environment for me.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else have a feeling about that one? Ryan, go right ahead.
Yeah, so being in this company as a group, this group as it stands right now has been together for about a year and a half, and some of us have been in this company for 5 years and even longer. So I think there's it's easy to get very comfortable with the people that we're working with, which is amazing for creating. But also I think something that Doug wants to do is always to do something new. So we're not doing the same project year after year. We're trying to invent new ways of working and new subject matter to make pieces about. So I think in this sense of refreshing and renewing this group that feels so comfortable together, bringing in artists from universities, from other fields, sometimes we work with actors. It really gives us new life and new inspiration, and it's always exciting just to be in the space with new people that bring something totally different to work with and explore.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next question. So now in this part of the show, we're going to zero in on the piece that was being worked on right before the shutdown, the new commission. So so Doug, one of the things that attracted me instantly to your work in our early conversations and talking about shelter and how it was about faith is that your themes become so clear, and your to me the narrative of it becomes so clear, and you're so intentional that way. And I like that because I think it helps certainly me talk to audience members who want to come to modern dance but get that, oh, I'm not sure what it's about feeling, and help them start to look at how to watch it and how to have their own experience with it. So I'd like to start out with the new piece by having you just talk to us about what the inspiration for that was, in terms of themes. What were your goals for the piece, and did that change as you did the work?
Well, you know, Seth, it's funny you should ask that question, because I am going to tell you that before I walked into the studio, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I had a score in mind. Actually, I think we played with a couple of different scores when we were first building some material. And I very often when I walk into a room, I have an idea in the back of my head, based off of who's in the room with me. The audition process was really complicated for this because the level of dancing was just so extraordinary. So the 8 people that I chose to be in the work felt as if they were natural extensions of the company that I had. There were people that were steeped in the style that we were working in. Their ways of moving were really unique. They had different looks. They were all individuals, and that felt as if the 8 of them melded beautifully with my 8 company members. So I was interested in building an ensemble that felt as if it was one, but also each of the 16 members who were individuals. But until I had all of them in the room working together and playing together and collaborating and building material, very often it's not a clear direction of where I'm headed. And I very often say I live off of my instincts in situations like this. So I knew that I wanted to create a physical work, but also a moving work. I was interested in the intersection of the 2 groups, professional company that had a certain sense of maturity to it, and a student group that had, undeniable, unique qualities that I was immensely drawn to, and what were the differences and what were the similarities. So I set about, once I knew who the cast members were, I set about building a structure based off of 3 Philip Glass pieces that were not related. They were all from completely different works. And that is the first time that I've ever done something like that as an artist. So that was new for me, building a musical palette that was drawing from different oral capacities. And began just the process of primarily working with the student cast in the afternoons and my own company in the mornings, keeping them separate, building completely different sections at the same time, and then eventually bringing them together and having an understanding of what I wanted to achieve through the form of the work. But it wasn't until we were all in the room together that I really understood what I felt was the power of the work. And I felt as if we were in the most beautiful pocket of creation 2 weeks before we had the plug pulled from us, where we almost had a complete outline of the work. And it's at that point in the creative process for me as an artist where I get really excited, where I'm able to see the piece from beginning to end, and I'm able to kind of say, these are the connections that take us from here to here. These are the people that pull out here. Really kind of going in after the small details, getting rid of all the places that are fillers. I have a tendency to build work in an outline form. So knowing that some of what I'm building is wrong, but the idea of it is right, and that I'll have time later to go back and fix that. And as I said, on March 12th, the very last day of our rehearsal, we almost got to the end of the dance. In fact, I rushed to just kind of push them to get to the end of the music, knowing that and hoping that, we would have time to go in and give that all clarity. Sadly, that didn't happen though.
Yeah, no, that's very visceral to me because if you remember, I was going to walk on the 13th.
Yes.
So I definitely remember. And for folks that are watching who don't know, one of the things we've been able to do at the PAC is build a great rehearsal studio downstairs. So even though we didn't get to show the piece, we did have that residency. And when you do what I do, you can tell when the artist is happy. And that was, one of the great things, but ultimately the harder thing about having it taken away was that I could tell we're excited.
I was. I will also say that I think also another aspect that was unique to this project is that it was to live another life. In addition to the 8 dancers that were going to perform with the company on March 28th, we had 8 additional dancers, well, later a few more additional dancers that were learning the company roles and then they would then perform that all together in the COD spring performances in May, which of course also did not happen. So it was wonderful to have a different aspect of the project of going on with a different group of dancers with a different set of ideas and rules that they needed to partake in order to be in the work.
Great, thank you, Doug. And I will tell you, I'm actually not surprised by your response to the question, unlike sort of the way that you described Shelter to me initially, because, and I may have told you this before, but in my office, I have on the wall this great doodle that you did from one of our meetings, one of our early meetings, talking about this project, and I'll give it back to you one day. But the doodle actually has 4 different ideas for this piece, all sectioned out. So in this instance, it doesn't surprise me. So I want to open that up to Ryan and to the students to react to what you just heard Doug say about the process and the piece. Did you notice the things he was talking about as you were writing? And what changed and evolved as you went through the process that Doug just described? Madison.
Yes, everything that Doug just described, at least for me, I very much agree and feel all of that. Being able to reminisce about our experience and this process feels like it was very long ago. But however, just talking about it is bringing up all of the joyous and happy memories that we had in the studios. It was very collaborative. Doug was able to cultivate a space that was open, accepting, really pushed us and challenged us while seeing everyone's unique individuality. So it very much was a community. And then when we were able to have the pleasure of the company members joining us, it just added a completely different layer to the work that we had been doing in the studio, to just see the work that he'd been doing also with this piece, with the company, and having it just mesh together. Yeah, it was just like 2 puzzle pieces when it came together. And we weren't able to fully finish the puzzle, but the energy and the idea that we were working on every day in the studio was definitely becoming more alive and more colorful as the process went on.
Great, thank you, Madison. Anybody else want to jump in on that one? All right, well, I'll not put, Doug wants to jump in, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I felt like I felt like I was creating in a green screen in a little bit. There would be I would build a section, I would build a quartet, and then all of a sudden I would have to say, so here's there's another quartet that happens here, and the company comes in at this point, and then then there would be 8 dancers coming out, and I would say, okay, the company is going to be coming in around you. But all the while, I was building the alternative ideas in another studio in the mornings. So and eventually, we, as Madison would say, we showed up, and we had an entire 8-minute section that we had built that all of a sudden was ready to go. I think the dancers saw it for the first time, and in many ways, it infused where we were headed with their section, which was the final movement section, which we were building, which the company hadn't seen. So it was this constant going back and forth of what's missing, what's not missing. And it wasn't not until that moment where we actually were in the room together sharing everything that we had, where there was, I feel like there was this really beautiful spirit of being one community.
Awesome. Thank you all. So Ryan, I want to move to you because your experience within all of this is so unique. Can you tell us about what was it like to be a student who learned from Doug and who danced the previous Varone work with COD, graduate into the company, be out with the company for a few years, and then return to Purchase to participate in a project like this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd say Purchase really feels like a home base for me. It's the kind of the first place I came after graduating high school, spent my college there. And then in my last year, I got to dance a piece called Lux that Doug created back in 2006, but they were restaging it on us in 2015. And that was just a super transformative experience. It was really a beautiful piece, and it was just amazing for that to be the last thing that I did in my Purchase student career. And then at that point, I joined the company and would come back often, starting with that project for In the Shelter of the Fold, and then also for the past few years I've been teaching there. So it doesn't really feel like I've left too far. It feels like I'm kind of coming back, and it's a really great place to come back to, and it feels like the energy that I remember there as a student feels alive in a similar way. It seems like the excitement and the passion for dance, all of that feels like it's just continuing and blossoming, and the level of dancers there now are just super incredible. It feels like the level steps up every year. So it's exciting to continue to be part of the community there.
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
So we will end with some fun questions. And Doug, you're not going to get out of here without talking about West Side Story, so don't worry about that. But for the moment, I do want to move to some questions about the times we're living in and how we as artists are dealing with them and how we can help. So I want to start with just an open question for the group. What have folks been doing during the quarantine to stay active creatively? And how has that been? Has it been hard to stay active creatively? Doug, or Madison, sorry. It switched on me.
I am currently living with my wonderful family in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Things have not been as intense here as it has in a city such as New York. So we haven't fully ever shut down due to COVID. Of course, there was social distancing and quarantine and all that stuff, but now things are fairly open. So I have been really trying to be more immersive trying to immerse myself more into the arts community here. And a really wonderful friend of mine, her name is Madeline Scott. She's the executive director of South Dakota Ballet. We are putting together pop-up drive-in performing art shows. They are called Park and Art with the Headlights Theater, and it's kind of like our little art baby right now. We're just trying to uplift the arts community in a very conservative town while keeping everyone safe in their cars, but still bringing live performance back. So that's what I've been doing to try to keep my creative spark and juices flowing. And it's been a lot of fun, lots of learning and all that stuff, but it's good to be collaborating with people again.
I love that, Madison. Thank you. And I love that, I agree with you. I think that, places that have been fortunate to not be as hard hit as places like New York or California or Florida, it's so great that you're getting out there leading the way and making sure that there's still live arts in people's lives. And it does radiate out to the hot spots where we can't gather, even in the way that you're saying. So thank you for doing that.
It's been a lot of fun. And it's for the artists involved, I think it's been just as rewarding for them as it has been for the community. So we just had our first show. I don't know where it's gonna go from this point on, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Good, thanks. And Katie.
So Maddie and I are kind of in a similar situation. I live in a small town in Indiana, and we haven't been as harshly impacted by COVID, which has been really nice. It's given me the opportunity to go back to the dance studio where I grew up, and I'm starting to do some small classes there. And being in a studio in itself, I've realized is just a blessing, because finishing our last semester at Purchase at home and like doing ballet in my kitchen and contemporary classes in my living room, it's made me appreciate how special a studio can be. So going back and teaching like 11-year-olds has been strangely rewarding, and I've come to really enjoy it. So I'm starting to do that more. And also, when I was first coming home, I realized the importance of looking into other art forms and exploring like painting, which I'm not very good at, but it's a creative outlet, and it was very nice to just release some of the thoughts that I was having in my head instead of just keeping them in, because I didn't have anywhere to dance. So that was really nice.
Thank you, Katie. So the next question was originally Doug, but I think really anyone can speak to this. We're curious to know working in this time. So Doug, how you've been working with your dancers, and maybe how others have been working on projects, given that we can't all necessarily get together in a rehearsal studio. How are you working with them? And I also would love to hear about, how are you staying active, understanding that, dance is so physical. I've spoken to some companies who think they're going to need the equivalent of spring training to get, back out there. So I'm curious to hear about how you've been besting that and how you've been working together. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, first of all, let me just say I obviously have a dance company in New York City, and in the middle of March, I moved up to, I have a log cabin in upstate New York, where I have been since March. Just to kind of put my life into perspective and the company's life into perspective for those of you. It's been a difficult time for us. Right from the get-go, we were literally about to go on tour the next day across the United States, and that tour was canceled. We had a benefit that was canceled. We had a commission that was canceled, a summer workshop, a devices workshop, touring in the fall, a lot of lost income for us as an organization, which has been really difficult, trying to figure out how to keep ourselves moving forward as an organization. We've applied for as much federal funding, state funding. Foundations have been very, very forthcoming in their support of the arts, which I think is tremendous. But it has taken its toll on our organization, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can find our way forward. I just wanted to say that because I think it's important to hear. I think the arts have been greatly affected by this pandemic in ways that maybe regular, ordinary people don't really get. So I wanted to share that. All of the company members are on unemployment right now, which I'm immensely grateful for, that they have that income coming in. We just did a virtual workshop, our first virtual workshop. Every summer we do a 3-week workshop. This year we were going to be up at Skidmore College Next year, we're planning on being at Purchase again, which will be great. And it's usually a beautiful opportunity to touch base with 60 plus students. We build a really beautiful community of artists where we not only do we dance, but we talk about what it's like to be in the dance world, how we can change the world. We tried to accomplish that by doing a virtual workshop. We limited the enrollment to only 60 students, which we felt was manageable in a virtual world, and created intimate environments with all the students as best that we could. Based on the success of that, we're going to do a second round of that the first week of August, and hopefully that will go as well. The company and I stay in touch. We have meetings every Monday about the future, about where we're headed. I'm about to start some film projects with each of them. In the past month or so, I created a new film project with Michael Tresnovec, who is one of the prime dancers for the Taylor Company for many, many years, that will be broadcast on July 14th. As part of the Orchestra for St. Luke's virtual concert. But it renewed in me the desire to be making films again, which I hadn't in a very, very long time. And it seems like the perfect medium right now to be working long distance with my company members to create intimate experiences for them that are about where they are in their lives, something personal to them, but also something universal to each of us. So that's a project that we're actively working on, and that will start to take shape in the next few weeks.
Great, Doug. Thank you so much. And as it would happen, the next question was about your summer workshop and how, because many people are so aware of it, and just how you had chosen to do it virtually, which I know everyone that got to participate was really grateful for. But you've already answered the question, so we can move along unless anyone else has a comment about the previous question. Ryan, go ahead.
I just wanted to add about, you said something about the spring training to get back into shape, and I think we've maybe done 3 rehearsals on Zoom, and we've done a bunch of teaching ourselves. I think all of us are in the company are teaching artists, so we've been trying to do that as well. But yeah, there is a huge change in the amount of activity that we're doing as compared to a few months ago. And I think this is the first year of no performances that I've had since middle school. So that was hearing that news was really tough to take in. But I've also been thinking about this time as a moment to refresh. Dance can be so taxing on the body, and I think having some time to actually take a step away and still doing some yoga and classes and trying to have it a part of our lives in some way, but also being able to let it go a little bit and take in other art and think about other things, and to just have that space. I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think other members, I can't speak for everyone, but I think some of the other company members are also in that similar space.
Thank you for letting us in on that, Ryan. So I want to go to Faith.
Yes, just to add on to what Ryan was saying, I can definitely agree this time is very unusual. I mean, none of us have experienced something like this. But for me, it's just been recentering my why, why I love to dance, why am I an artist, why did I choose when I was 10 to start training, dancing professionally, stuff like that. And also just adjusting to Zoom and taking classes on Zoom, which is a whole nother conversation. But I think that has just broaden the dance world, similar to what Doug was saying of presenting dance through film, which I'm finding it's been really interesting to see different interpretations. And Michelle actually recently, a part-time faculty at the COD, asked me to do this solo. She choreographed for me to perform for this museum art exhibit that's happening in the fall, and it's through a video. So that's been pretty cool, like learning something through Zoom and then being able to eventually next week meet up with her and perform it. So yeah, I'm just taking it day by day.
Thank you. I love that what you said about recentering. That's really beautiful. So on a practical note, what do we all think? How can the dance community take this as a little bit of an opportunity and learn from using virtual tools to train dancers, if possible? Is this kind of training, which we all know tends to be a little, expensive when you go the sort of, and I'm talking about the younger people in particular, when you go the sleepaway summer arts camp route or something like that. Is there an opportunity to really refine these virtual tools so that they make high caliber training for dancers more accessible?
So when I first started doing the online classes, Zoom, Instagram Live, it was exciting because I'm in Indiana, and usually when I'm home for the summer or winter break, I don't have any access to classes or instructors in New York that I've created a relationship with. So being able to continue my education through this online platform has been really, really nice, actually. And like now that I'm working with some younger of them having the opportunity to artists that they usually would not have the opportunity to, I think it's really exciting, and I think it can become more reformed and accessible, and I'm excited to see where it can go. It definitely has its challenges, but there's a big opportunity that's coming to light, and I think it could be really great.
Thank you. Doug?
I think the word accessible is really the cornerstone for me. What we do is so specific as a dance company. And, if people are lucky enough to find their way to us, virtue of the workshops that we do or the schools that we teach in, that's great. A lot of people don't and possibly can't afford it. What we've learned is that we have now the capacity to reach out past our normal the normal people that are usually drawn to our work, to create a dialogue that's wider than what we normally do. So we're able to throw the net out kind of way past where we can. I'm not speaking terribly articulately enough right now. But I'm thinking that, our summer workshop that we just did, we had people from Tel Aviv, we had people from the West Coast. It was extraordinary. And it's an amazing opportunity to open up the floodgates of what it is that every artist can do and share it on a wider palette. So I wanted to put that out, and for ourselves as a teaching and touring dance company, it allows us to have dialogues with communities before we even get there now, in ways that we hadn't really thought about. Ways of working with, we're already talking and working with presenters. Should we be fortunate enough to have these gigs in 2021, we're already working with presenters to reach out with their communities, to work with high school kids, to work with college kids in the area via online before we even get into their cities. And it's a really wonderful opportunity to begin an artistic dialogue with communities that's much larger than what we normally anticipate. So it's actually quite a beautiful tool right now, I think, for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, just to add on to what Doug was saying, that accessibility, to share a specific example from this past virtual workshop that we held last month. We had a student who had taken the workshop maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and she has kids now and a life and can't leave for 3 weeks to go somewhere, but she was able to come to this. And I thought that was really exciting, that we can also reconnect with the communities that we've been a part of in the past, and bring back some of the history and some of the people who were involved with the company before. So that was really great.
Doug, this may be a free business idea, but I'm curious, I'm listening to all this, and it's all wonderful to hear that we've taken this challenge and turned it into an opportunity. And so I'm thinking with my hat on, and I'm wondering if you think that perhaps an interesting expansion of this would be virtual classes for non-dancers who are just interested, which then might become audience building. Because I think in my role, I hear a lot, well, I'm just a little scared because I don't quite know everything that goes into making a dance. But if they did, you know, they might be more interested. And then I think of a lot of folks, you know, myself included, I would never stand in a studio in front of 30 other people. But if I knew I was on Zoom and no one but the teacher could see me, I might be okay with that. So I wonder what you think of that idea.
I love that last little bit that you said about being incognito in a dance class. I think it's our dream sometimes as dancers to live that way. I think dance is it's a large concept. It's, you know, it's not just about taking dance classes. It's about the art of creativity. And, you know, very often when we are dealing with non-dancers, for me, it's far more important to allow them to be physical within their own bodies, within their own imaginations. So I agree with you completely, but I feel as if the concepts that we're trying to work on as in a virtual way, sharing concepts of how to create material. Once again, we had talked about devices, different ways of organizing bodies through space that people would never ordinarily think about, using the things in their rooms to create dances. Interesting, smart ways to open up a dialogue with people who wouldn't ordinarily be drawn to movement. And allowing that then to be the connector and the in to come and see work. We do it a lot on tour, in the studio, and we're building programs now to share that on a virtual level as well. Awesome,
thank you. So let me go back to the students, and I just have a few more questions, and we're so grateful for everyone's time. I know the audience is really going to enjoy all this insight. So for the students, obviously a tough question, but I'm confident that you've thought about this and you're going to inspire us. We're curious to know how you see your future, specifically the next few years career-wise, unfolding now that you've graduated, because you have all graduated, and congratulations. How do you see it unfolding, and how has your plan changed as a result of the COVID crisis? Madison.
I feel like before COVID, when someone would ask me about my future, I would get a little anxious, just because after graduation, the world is yours. You can do with it what you please. And now during COVID, I still get a little anxious because there is, like, we will get out of this. The dance community will come together and dance together once again eventually, not knowing when that will happen, but having faith that it will, is kind of keeping me motivated and sane during this hard time. Also, when COVID was just starting to begin, things were just starting to get canceled. A lot of us, or I would say everyone in our class, their summer plans started to get canceled, and things that they were hoping to do for potential jobs and different opportunities and connections, those got erased. But I feel like our class, I speak just with the Conservatory class 2020, we're all very diligent and love dance with all of our hearts. So we'll be able to figure it out.
Totally agree. You will. Okay, I'm gonna go to Faith.
Yeah, just to piggyback from Madison, I honestly have faith that I'm gonna be fine, you know, that doors are gonna open, opportunities are gonna open up for me. It's just a matter of when, but not really dwelling in the unknown, because then that just causes that anxiety and fear of like, oh my God, you know, I spent all this time training and now I don't get the opportunity to perform or whatever, you know, the case might be. But I choose to just take the perspective of taking this time to really like cultivate, like, what do I want to say? What do I want to bring that's different to the dance world, especially as a Black female artist in amongst of what's happening in this world of the Black Lives Matter movement and the justice within my community and just the constant systematic racism that's occurring. You know, what can I do as a Black female artist to bring to companies that I may be accepted into? You know, it's not just for me, in the beginning, I was like, okay, I graduated. Okay, I just want to learn. You know, I just want to be in a company. I just want to, you know, just take that role, which of course learning I'll always do, but also knowing, you know, what can I bring within my voice? What can I bring within not just my physical expression of movement, but how to also use my voice to speak on things that matter to me and things that are important to me for other generations of little brown boys and little brown girls coming up into a community of the dance world, which I'm hoping is changing for the better forever. Yeah, so that's just my take on it.
Thank you, Faith. That's a beautiful and powerful thought. I think for any young person or really anyone going into anything new, what you said about, you know, bringing your voice rather than just being glad to be there, I think that's really, really important. Anybody else want to chime in, or should we have? There's Katie. Great. I wasn't going to force you, but I was hoping.
Yeah, Faith, that was beautiful. I 100% agree. I have found that this time is definitely a time for reflection and to allow myself to be uncertain about the future, but also know that this is a time where I can be researching and I can be journaling and thinking about what is my end goal, what would I like to achieve as a young artist, and what is the best way for me to get there, and how do I want to get there. So although I don't really know what I'm doing right now and I'm just kind of rolling with how things are going, I am taking this time and remembering that there is hope and that our community is strong and we're going to get there and it's going to work out. That's kind of been my mindset through it all.
Thank you, Katie, and everyone. So before we move to the end of the interview, of course, you know, we're starting to hear this in some of your comments. You know, artists' role in social change and moment of social unrest is proven time and time again across our history to be so critically. I know personally for me, it's the power to assist in social change and in difficult times is what has kept me reinventing myself and staying in the arts. And so I feel like it's critical, as anyone would feel it's critical, that we at least touch on some of the current social unrest as a result of the horrific tragedies that we've seen all over the country in this last little while, and really, you know, throughout much of our history, unfortunately. So what I want to ask is, how has the current Black Lives Matter movement and just the current social moment, how has it's changed things, right? And hopefully, I hope it's changed things, and that it's created some real important dialogues. So what does that change and that dialogue mean for artists in this country at this moment? How do you see your that changing your perspective and how you might approach your work?
think everything that's been going on has been profound in many ways. Anyone that has a heart and a soul can't be changed by what's going on in this country right now. It's exciting. It feels as if there's a moment that is happening that is important and that we can't let go. And I, you know, as kind of maybe the older person in this panel has seen, you know, other opportunities pass by and have seen other opportunities fail to achieve things. This moment feels different. It feels potent, it feels charged. It's being led by the youth of this country, which is extraordinary to watch. And that is rare. It feels like a very proud moment to be an American right now, which seems odd because I don't think we've had much to be proud of in the last couple of years. In terms of how it will change art for me, I don't know. I have no idea yet because I feel as if we're in the middle of it. And we never know how things will affect us until we get to the other side of it, or until more is learned, or until I step back into the studio and all of a sudden realize that's what's going on and the world is affecting the choices that I'm making creatively. I've always believed as an artist that I follow my instinct in a room, but everything in the world that goes on affects the work that I make. And this will be no different. It was no different after the AIDS crisis. It was no different after 9/11. These were moments that changed the world for us. And this feels like it has that importance. So I'm eager to begin a process of reevaluating who I am as a human being, who I am as a white artist, and figuring out how that changes and shifts my own perspective of my own art in the years to come.
Great. Thank you, Doug. That's beautifully said. Madison.
Piggybacking off of what Doug said, I think this is just, well, no, I know that this is just waking everybody up, and with the momentum that this movement has and with the importance that it has on our art community, on our general community, on the country, on the world, it's finally the institutional, social, and like academic racism is finally coming forward with a spotlight on it. And even evaluating like our own individual racist tendencies, our own biases, is constantly motivating me. And I hope I can speak for the other active white allies and other allies with this community that it is important to stay diligent and active as much as we possibly can to ensure that this doesn't die down and these horrible incidents keep happening. And this will absolutely make a huge impact on art. It has to. I think artists are injustices and all of this stuff is just so embedded in our country, and art really just like brings it out. So I believe that artists will continue to be at the forefront of this solution.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important to point out that a common theme in the statements that are being made in response to this question is that we can't let this moment go. We can't forget it. And it's the art's job to make sure that we don't do that. So I'm glad to hear that from folks. I want to go to Faith.
Yeah, just to add on, I think art definitely needs to be affected by what's happening in our outside world. I mean, being a person of color, being Black, you know, my skin stands out differently than someone who's of my white counterpart, and that's been since the moment I was born. So it's great that people are now understanding that. how we function and move throughout this world. But art definitely needs to keep this current and ongoing conversation happening. For too long, it's been kind of left on the background, or research wasn't done before presenting a piece of artwork that could have been offensive. And there just needs to be a sense of accountability to allow your Black dancers, Black choreographers to feel like our voices are being heard, that we are being seen, not just for the color of our skin, but as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, for the content of our character. And, you know, knowing that all of these things in one will hopefully make a better community. And I'm seeing change, which is great. It's just a matter of putting action behind that, and knowing that even when this COVID is over, like, Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter has always been a thing for 400 years, like centuries. So just remembering that and continuing to keep that going onwards, we can just build a better future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Faith. Yeah, that theme of accountability also so important. Okay, so we are going to, oh, Doug just took his hand down. Never mind. I thought there was going to be more. So I'm going to close with two more questions. The first one is for Doug and Ryan, and then we'll finish on our recent graduates. So Doug, I promised you wouldn't get away without answering a question about West Side Story, which was so beautiful and well received here before we well, a little bit before we went into all this. So the question that was asked is, how do you go about approaching such an iconic work, such an iconic piece of music, and making it unique and making it your own? And is your approach different because of how iconic that work is?
Well, the score has a lot of baggage to it, and beautifully so. It has a lot of baggage for me. I grew up with it. I grew up, you know, with the musical. I grew up with the movie. It changed my perspective of what a male dancer could be when I was a kid. So it has a real importance for me. As a creative artist, as a trying to strip away at that baggage and just allowing the sound and the score to breathe and live as if it was neutral. That was both difficult and delicious to do. Once I understood what was possible, it was very, very easy to put away the ideas that created the score in the first place, that sense of narrative. You know, the score is immensely theatrical, so it has its own drive to it. It has its own dramaturge to it. All I needed to do was find a different reason for using it, which I felt was a beautiful chore to create. You know, and everyone in the company had their own different responses to the score, their own different histories with West Side Story. So, you know, there were complicated conversations about having to, you know, put certain musicalities away because it was ingrained in them from the movie, or but overall, I think once we got over the heap of understanding that we were denying what so many people love about the score, it was kind of enthralling to create too.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Doug. Ryan, did you have a perspective on that piece?
Yeah, I actually have a history with West Side Story as well. I was in the show. Sorry, we're having a thunderstorm here in Brooklyn, so that's why it's so dark. And if you heard that, I was in West Side Story in high school in a production of West Side Story as a shark. So I have a history with the music and a lot of baggage as well. And this piece it reminds me of another piece of Doug's called Strict Love, which is set to some Jackson 5 and some other music from that era. And there's something specific about how we dance to something that's so has so much baggage, so much emotion to it, and then layering it, juxtaposing it against something that feels stoic and abstract. And as a performer, there's something in that strictness that feels like it actually brings up more emotion than if I were to dance really emotionally to that music. So that play was really exciting, kind of denying everything that's in that score, but also really tapping into it in a different way.
Thank you, Ryan. That's wonderful to learn about. So I want to close with the students. You've all just graduated. Again, our deep congratulations from everyone at the college and at the Performing Arts Center, especially under the circumstances. So because you've just graduated, you've just made it to the top of the mountain, you know what that journey entails in the best of times. And you now know what it entails in some of the more difficult times. So now you've got that junior class who's going to show up on campus in the fall, and they're going to need to go through senior year, and they're going to need to do it in this unique way, with some things over Zoom and even some things that are in person, not being the way we're used to them. So with your journey in a normal time in mind, and then the moment in mind, love for each of you to give a piece of advice to the incoming senior Conservatory of Dance class. Katie, go ahead.
Okay. Senior year is a journey in itself. It was my favorite year of school. I think that as a class, the class of 2020 has always been full of love and support. But when senior year came around, we all really just had each other's backs, which was a blessing because I wouldn't have made it through otherwise. But I think my advice would be, this is going to be weird, but when you need to cry, just cry and get it out. And when you need to get off campus with your friend and get a cup of coffee because you're stuck in your senior project and you don't know what to do, go do it. Your peers are everything, and rely on them. Appreciate your faculty and staff because they have your back. And know that you can get through it. You are an artist, you're a creator, you have something to say, and remember that. And just enjoy every day of it because it goes fast.
Thank you, Katie. I'll go to Madison next.
Well, just with everything going on, I have a feeling that their senior year is going to look much different than ours did. COVID affected the end of it for us, when, as of right now, it looks like COVID is going to really affect a big chunk of their senior year. And if one thing virtual learning has taught us is just how much to appreciate in-person learning. And I guess if I were to give advice, it would be just to be present. Don't take the studios, the beautiful Purchase studios, for granted. Don't take your classmates, your education for granted. And like Katie said earlier, like, it's the community, it's your classmates. And for us, the class of 2020, it's really, our class was a huge family who just loved and supported one another. So just be as present as you can with the people you were able to share this experience with.
Thank you, Madison. That's great advice for those seniors, and being present is great life advice throughout.
I would say my advice would be just to remember why you want to do this, like, because it's really easy to fall into, oh, I'm in Zoom class, this is boring, or I don't want to be here, or, you know, just a negative energy. But I think trying to keep a positive energy, staying committed, staying dedicated, like really holding yourself accountable, because there's not a teacher there that's going to be like, oh, she's not working hard. Like, it's only you in your living room or kitchen, wherever you are, and your space you've created. So just really being accountable to yourself, like knowing, okay, I'm going to work hard in this ballet class, even though there's nobody watching me, you know, really exploring what that is. And I think also, I would say as some advice, anything that you've learned about yourself that's new, a part of your personality, or ignites your artistry, I think you need to definitely keep that as you enter into your senior year, because that will definitely allow you to explore more of you and just add on a deeper layer that you've already experienced through COVID as a junior, now going into your senior year. And then you can keep that going for like the rest of your life as an artist. So
Thank you, Faith. That's well said. And thank you, everyone. This was so great. I'm sure our audience, both on and off the campus, are just going to really love this. I want to close with just saying to the students, thank you. It's good to see you. I don't know if you all realize this, but the class of 2020 is special to me because you all are the first class that I made it from freshman all the way to senior year through at Purchase. So I will miss you guys. But we know you're going to do great things. And on behalf of myself and everyone at the PAC and the college, we're so very proud of you. So keep on keeping on. And we look forward to seeing what you're going to do. And Doug and Ryan, of course, it's always a pleasure to have the company and to work with Doug. You all are such a gift to Purchase, and we can't thank you enough. So thank you all so very much. For audiences, we hope you enjoyed this. You can find out everything we're doing to keep you entertained at www.artscenter.org, and we will keep on responding to your requests and doing things like this until we can finally welcome you back to the Performing Arts Center. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. Thank you.